At time with Jordan. Is this mic on? The mic is live. Alright, we are ready to go. Foodie talk. Alright. On the radio, let's stop footing. Yes, this is AI. Keen to get started. Pump those ratings up high. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Airtime with Jordan. I'm your host Jordan Faso, and today we are just going to do the usual power rankings updates, go through each of the teams that played this round in round 15. Got a bit of movement there this week that will be of interest to you guys, I'm sure, and then just do the Secret Star Society as well afterwards. So let's get into it. We have a new number one in the power rankings, and I might have gone a bit early here. But it is the Brisbane Lions. I've moved them back up to number one. They were there at the start of the season for me. And Lions fans, massive win to right the ship here. So really, really impressive one to win down in Geelong, of course. But the reason I've sort of stuck with them so far this year and held them around second in the power rankings for the most part is, last year they were just so far behind the eight ball. And they obviously came storming home, won the premiership, found some form in the back half of the year. But at this point in the year, they're second on the ladder, and they haven't really played great footy all year, which may seem like a bit of a reason to not have them that high. But they still have managed to beat some really good teams. They've beaten Geelong twice now, of course, down at the Cattery as well this round. But they've beaten the Bulldogs as well, Gold Coast, who take or leave them, and the Hawks as well. Similar, probably take or leave them. So. To have done that and not have played their best footy, I think that they'll take that at this point in the year. And, this is just a massive win for me. And I'm sort of... I don't think you could argue they've played better than Collingwood up until this point, but I've sort of put them back up there just because I'm starting to bet on their upside a bit and, the amount of form that they might be able to play themselves into in the back half of the year. And just the amount of stars that they have across the field, and not to say Collingwood don't, of course, but when you look at guys like Cam Rayner, Zach Bailey, Hugh McCluggage, Will Ashcroft, all of them in their prime or pre-prime, really playing great footy. They have one of the best defenders in the league in Harris Andrews. They have an emerging young key forward who, is going to be an absolute star if he isn't already in Logan Morris. He's kicking bags every week at the moment. They have, a litany of small forwards. Charlie Cameron not in great form at the moment, obviously, but, Kyle Lohmann really starting to find his form that he was in at the end of last year especially. So I just think that they're starting to really take shape here, and I think they're timing their run very well. They still have Tom Duday. I'm still waiting on him to play. I'm very excited if he does get back into the team, and potentially Kitty Coleman as well to come back. So I've spoken about those guys and what they could add to this team as well. But I'm just buying them. I just think the upside's there. They've got the confidence from last year, the premiership win, of course, and then they've got an interesting ruck battle as well. Like Darcy Ford is at the moment sort of keeping Oscar McInerney out of the ruck, so he's playing well enough. And that's why they're my premiership favourite. I'm just betting on them at this point in the season, and that's why I've put them there. And I spoke last week about the Jack Payne injury, and of course, you might think, well, that's going to hold them back or whatever, but outside of the Bulldogs, who's really playing a massive key forward, who's got two really, really big key forwards at the moment? Adelaide, of course, do as well, but otherwise, I don't think you're really worried about, they just did what they did to Geelong. Collingwood don't play a huge forward line. The Bulldogs, I guess, no one's really going to have an answer for Sam Darcy, so make that what you will. Hawthorn definitely don't. Freo, they've got Josh Tracy, but other than that, they don't have huge guys. They have a few key forwards, but none of them are really worried about. GWS, I guess, are the other one, who, Hogan and Cadman, depending on how Cadman comes on. But overall, I don't think the Jack Payne injury is going to absolutely obliterate them. It's obviously going to hurt in some matchups, and I touched on that last week. But, we saw some things on the weekend that sort of make me think that they're going to go in a different direction. It actually might be a bit of a kickstart for them from the back half, because obviously taking Payne out of the side, you lose a bit of a stopper, but what you're going to add to the back six there is you're going to be able to score from the back half more with a more running and better skilled player back there. And I think that's sort of my thinking, and that's I think what we saw on the weekend as well. And I went and checked what I was sort of seeing on the weekend was right, and turns out they had the highest scores, their highest score from back half across the whole season on the weekend against the Cats. And yeah, pretty big result. Obviously, a narrow ground as well, so they probably forced you to go through the corridor a bit more from the back half. But I don't think it's a coincidence that them having lost Jack Payne may also be able to they might be able to leverage that into better offense as well, especially from their back half and. Yeah, unlock that offense more by using some more mid-sized or skill-based players in the back half, especially Kitty Coleman is the one that I would be looking at for them to bring back in, and yeah, I think that could be a real weapon as the season goes on for them and sort of unlock a bit more firepower that you're never gonna say no to that. So that's sort of why I've put them back up number one. I'm sort of making a bit of a bet. Again, I don't think that they've been better than Collingwood this year, but I think going forward, I'm most intimidated by the Brizzy Lions and their star power and yeah, just what they're building towards at the moment. So number two, that leaves the Pies, of course. I'm not going to drop them any further than that, of course, but they've gone from 1 to 2 this week, and I think we saw them against the Saints in the weekend, but you have to play pretty perfect football against this group. They just have a lot of guys that are super capable all over the field. We've talked about their system a bit on the podcast as well, but yeah, probably a little bit unfair to drop them, and it's more about me obviously being pretty high on Brisbane as well as the Pies. Maybe I think are at a bit of a disadvantage by playing so well at the start of the year. Obviously, everyone starts to get a good look at you and see what you're doing well because you are the benchmark, and we saw it happen with Sydney last year. I don't expect them to have a drop off like Sydney did in the grand final or anything, but it's not an advantage to be playing your best footy at this time of the year. I'm not saying that Collingwood can't keep building as well, but they definitely have the eyes of the footy world on them at the moment to the highest degree. So I think that might be a little bit of a disadvantage for them as they go into the back half of the year. Nick Dacos, though, definitely getting more comfortable against taggers. It's a pretty scary sight for the rest of the competition because he had Marcus Windhager go to him on the weekend, who has been in absolutely ripping form as a tagger in recent weeks, kept Bont to his lowest possessions the week before since 2020, I think it was, or 2021, so really good week for Marcus Windhager the week before, but Nick Dacos just did not care. He had 30 touches on the weekend, went at 73.3% with his disposals, and that was his 5th highest on the year. And something I've sort of knocked him for while he's been in inside mid at least, or played around the ground at stoppages more often this year obviously and last year too, but yeah, something I've knocked him for is his efficiency, and he had one of his better games in that regard this week against the Saints, and was the second highest rated player on the ground overall. Had 9 intercept possessions, which was the highest amount since his first year when he played as a defender primarily. So if he's able to break tags consistently, add to his defensive game, become a bit more of a two-way player, and also be more efficient like he was in this one with the ball in hand, then I'm definitely going to be leaning towards him being one of the best players, if not the best player in the league. And keep in mind he's only 22, so I think based on his trajectory, he will get there without question. But I still don't think he's just there quite yet. He has do a bit more of this consistently, add to his defensive game, and then of course keep hitting the scoreboard as well. It's he's only averaging 0.6 goals per game this year, which compared to I think it was 0.9 last year. So he's dropped a little bit there, but I'm pretty excited to see if he is able to do those things, and if he does, then it's going to be a pretty hard argument to keep him off the number 1 spot in the league, I think, at the moment. So Pies still playing very well, just high at Brisbane at the moment, so that's why I've dropped them too. And Nick Dacos' very impressive performance on the weekend against arguably the best tagger in the comp right now. The Cats, number 3 still, no movement for me here. They're no panic stations either. They just got beaten by a better team and didn't really take advantage of their opportunities. I thought the efficiency wasn't there for them around the ground. They were -7 in disposal efficiency against the Lions, and everything else was largely pretty even across both teams, statistically at least on the weekend, and they just were really inaccurate in front of goal. They were -35 from expected score, so that's leaving a lot of scoreboard pressure on for the taking there. So I think that they're probably a little bit off in terms of pressure as well, but I can sort of think that we can put this one down to them being a bit lackadaisical heading into the bye potentially. So not super worried if I'm the Cats, although they've dropped a couple games at Cardinia Park this year and they've still got a few to play there. So interesting to see if that is the fortress we think it is at the moment. The Bulldogs, they're fourth for me. No movement for me either here. They, dominant display against the lesser Tigers, of course. Going to have a very, very healthy percentage the Bulldogs come finals time. So, not a lot to touch on out of this game. Bit of a confidence booster for them. Bont, after his down week against the Saints the week before, had a huge bounce-back performance. 36 touches, 83.3% disposal efficiency, 11 inside 50s, 7 clearances, 3 goals, 4 goal assists, direct goal assists, 12 score involvements in game, and in this game, and just a monster one from him here. And I've been high on them for a long time now, and very, very scary side for me in the back half of the year, similar to Brisbane, where I think that they're building nicely for a run home. And, they're only one game out of the top 4 at the moment, and only Adelaide and Collingwood, who, Collingwood they're not going to catch anyways, have a better percentage than them at this point. So, in a very good shape to make the top 4, I think, at this point in the year. Fifth, we have Adelaide. No movement for here with them. Hawthorn, they've moved up a spot due to someone falling, which is the next 3 teams have moved up a spot because of that team falling a little bit. But I've got the Hawks up at 6th now in the power rankings. Freo, they came 7th, moved up a spot. They're 7th for me. They didn't look super impressive for a while in this one against the Essendon, but eventually they sort of did pull away late and were definitely in a different stratosphere to the Essendon team that was out in the field. And I think that the strengths of the teams they've beaten over this last run hasn't been super strong, but that they have won 5 in a row now. So but I don't think they're absolutely beating the best team. So I'm just interested to see how they go over the back half of the year and see if they can keep up this form. I think that they've got some easy games coming up as well. So we're not going to find out a lot about Freo for a few weeks still, but they are racking up the wins. They're finding good form with the Brayshaw and Sarong, and Luke Jackson is playing his career best footy as well. So that all definitely helps. Alex Pearce to come back into the team as well is going to be interesting. Nat Fyfe, very, very poor game for him on the weekend. Unfortunately for him, I think he might be done. Another reason, if back to the argument with Cal Ward, not argument, but a bit of a did a bit of a spiel on Cal Ward a few weeks ago of if you are contemplating not going on, maybe best you don't, and I think that's applicable to Nat Fyfe as well. It's looking pretty sad for him, for someone who was once a champion of the game, of course. So unfortunately, he is done, I think. GWS, they've moved up the spot as well for me, and they got absolutely killed at the start of this game. I think Gold Coast kicked 4 in a row on them, and it looked like it was just I couldn't believe I was watching the same team as the week before, so against Brisbane. So they absolutely turned it around. There were some big performances. Stringer came on as a sub, and I actually think that might be a great role for him. He kicked 2 goals in the last quarter, and I think if he is going to be in the best 22, I don't mind him as a sub, because he can come in. He's a bit of a burst player anyway, and he adds a point of difference. And I think the ability to put him in through the midfield if you need to as well, if he's fit, play him up forward, of course, gives you a bit of flexibility with that sub position. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing. They did this one without Sam Taylor as well, so held the Gold Coast forwards without him, and we're able to get on top. Finn Callahan, another strong game, and Toby Green back as well, which is good to see. So Aaron Cadman, another player, really building nicely, and of course Jesse Hogan as well. So I think that they're looking very good, the Giants, at the moment, and I might quietly have to be putting them up in a few weeks. I think I could definitely see them going past Freo and Hawthorn in the next few weeks on the power rankings. So a bit of a watch on GWS, and I'm starting to think that I might need to put them into the genuine contender sort of territory, and might even have to get them above Adelaide at some point here. So looking very nice at the moment, the Giants, and now that they've back at NG Stadium, a bit more stability as well, which always helps. They've displaced for the start of the year, which always seems to throw them around a bit. So I think that they can sort of start to build a bit of form coming into the back half of the year as well. Team coming at 9th on the power rankings are the Gold Coast Suns. They've dropped 3 spots for me, and as I just said in that GWS segment, they started the game in red hot form, but they really just couldn't keep it up once the Giants started rolling. And I think Gold Coast probably haven't dealt that well with teams coming back at them lately. And they are in a bit of a slump, I think, at the moment. They've lost their last 3 against Freo, Geelong and GWS. So, they're teams that you want to be competing against. And, they haven't been able to do that again. Well, they've been competitive, but they just haven't been able to get the job done against these teams. And before that, they beat St Kilda by 19 points. And then the 2 weeks prior to that with their little homestand in Darwin against the Bulldogs and Hawthorn. So, it's not like where they got wins against the Bulldogs and Hawks, which is still impressive. But I do think it's reasonable to think that they probably don't win either of those Darwin games if it wasn't in Darwin, which of course it was. They did win those games, so they count as 8 points. But I'm just sort of highlighting the fact that they quite easily could have been 1-5 in their last 6 games, and their only win against the Saints in that case. So. If it wasn't for that Darwin advantage, the home ground advantage up there. So I think that that's not a crazy take. Maybe they take one of these games anyway. They might be 2-4 or something like that. But yeah, not great form at the moment for the Suns. A little bit of a watch for me. I think that they're sort of falling off a little bit. But hopefully they can keep their finals hopes alive. They're sitting just outside the 8 at the moment at the where are they? 9th at the moment in the ladder. So yeah, just outside the 8. Noah Anderson, though, straight up beast. He's definitely becoming a top 10 player in the league if he isn't there already. And just some of the stats on his season to date, he's the 4th highest rated player across the competition. He's the 4th rated player in disposals, 9th in metres gained, 7th in inside 50s, 5th in clearances, and 6th in score involvements amongst midfielders. So just a monster season for him to date, and yeah, definitely well-deserved captaincy and rightfully a favourite in the Brownlow as well. So just, really wanted to shout him out in this one. I'm still holding on a bit of hope here for the Blues, but yeah, I've got them 10th at the moment. Haven't moved them down after this bad performance against North, but yeah, North dominated for 2.5 quarters in this one, and that was enough to put the Blues away, which, isn't a great sign if you're the Blues when North can only dominate for just over half the game and you still didn't really have a shot in it. But yeah, I don't know, it is North Melbourne, so I think that as competitive as the Blues North Melbourne have been lately, you absolutely still need to win these games if you're the Blues. They're the 3rd last team for a reason on the ladder. I just don't know how. I know how it happened, but yeah, I just don't sort of think that you should be losing these games. I understand there was a few outs, which I'll get into in a minute, but yeah, it's not looking great for them, and I definitely think that we can rule them out of finals this year. It's sort for me, it's definitely those first 9 teams that I've talked about in the comp, and then after Gold Coast, I think it's a fair drop off from the 10th and teams below Carlton at the moment on the ladder. So yeah, I still think that they're the best of the next group of teams. Sydney might have a little bit of something to say about that on their run home, but yeah, there's a fair gap between them and the top 9 teams at the moment, I think, Carlton. So yeah, that being said, I'm not as low on them as the rest of the media probably are at the moment, just because the argument about Carlton all year and the last few years is how top heavy they are, right? And I think you just need to take a step back and account for that sometimes. And it might have been a bit of an oversight because they came off the win against West Coast, they were fine there, but when they came up against North Melbourne, who are a bit more competitive right now, they're so reliant on their top few players. If they're missing a few of them, then it really comes down to the fact that they were missing a few of them, and we talk about how reliant they are on those players. So they're sort of perceived top 6 players in terms of importance, probably Cripps, Curnow, Walsh, Wiedering, Harry Mackay, and Tom de Koning. So those 6 are, I'd say you're pretty comfortably your top 6 players, and if 2 of them aren't playing in Walsh and Harry Mackay, then you have a really low margin for error. They already do, I think, even when those guys are playing. So when you take 2 of them out, then are we really that surprised that they're going to lose games here and there? And especially against a North Melbourne team who, as I said, are very competitive at the moment and came to play, wanted a bit of revenge after the Good Friday match. So yeah, that margin for error was just too small in this one, and I think that it was compounded by a few coaching decisions. I think that, this main coaching decision I think really cost them, in terms of the whole game really, and it was where Tom de Koning was playing up forward because Hudson O'Keefe went out the week before, and Harry's still not back obviously, so they've decided, let's put Tom de Koning up forward as a key as a key position player there, and he didn't perform badly. But the issue is that leaves like Mark Pittonet to play ruck. He's not a forward, so you have to play Mark Pittonet in the ruck, who got absolutely dominated by Tristan Xerri, I thought, and North got on top in the centre, and that was the momentum. Like they highlighted the fact that was probably not the best decision. That they needed to put Tom DeConey back in the ruck, and then the issue with that is like when you put him there. Yeah, the game might swing back in your favour, or you might break even with Tristan Xerri, but like the Pitto being used as a forward is not ideal either. So you were just sort of hamstrung by your selections, and I think that going forward, Pitto is only like a break glass in case of emergency when Tom DeConing is injured. I don't think they can play in the same team, and if you have to play Pitto, it's only when he's injured, and that if I just don't think you should be taking Tom DeConing out of the ruck at all. Like, and in that situation, I just would not have done it. I would have played a small forward line instead of bringing Mark Pittonet in and, deal with whoever has to play second ruck. If you have to use Paddy Cripps in second ruck, then so be it. Like, I just don't think that losing the advantage of Tom DeConing in the ruck is worth bringing in putting him up forward instead. So it's just, a bit of a schematic thing that I think really did cost them a bit on the weekend, and as I said, probably not as bad of a loss as some people are saying, because North have been good, and the Blues aren't as good as everyone probably expects, or I think people just love shitting on them a bit too. So if they're losing, if they don't have Harry and Sam Walsh, they're probably not going to win a lot of games anyway. So that's sort of where I'm at with them. 11th, Port Adelaide in the rankings. They came up against a strengthened Sydney team this week, but you can't put any faith in this group at the moment. Can compete week to week. Unfortunately, I think some of their players are starting to check out a bit. Saw Miles Bergman apparently say to Isaac Heaney after the game that he was feeling crook and he was tagging Isaac Heaney or going head to head with Isaac Heaney. So when you got players that are just chatting to opposition your own players chatting to the opposition about how I'm not feeling great this week, then are you really ready for battle, I guess, in that regard, and are you trying to compete to the best of your abilities? I think probably not, and overall pretty frustrating season for Port Adelaide given the amount of faith they put into Ken to have a nice send-off here. So I think maybe regretting that decision a little bit, the Port Adelaide team, because they've sort of wasted a year that they could be developing under Josh Carr. Coming in 12th are the Swans. I moved them back up 3 spots, and what a turnaround compared to the last time they played Port Adelaide in Port Adelaide, where they last year, I don't know if you remember, they lost by 100 points. So it was a bit of a turnaround from that game, and it definitely helps having Tom Papley and Errol Goulden back. I think I might have underestimated how much they would make a difference, those two. Obviously, you know how good they are, both like all Australian quality sort of players, but I think the great of salt is that this is Port Adelaide, so maybe they got them on a bad week, and that's the reason the Swans win, and then they go back to being this disappointing team that we've seen for the majority of the season. But you can't. I think you have to admit that the remainder of the season will be better for the Swans than it has been to this point in time, and I don't think they're going to make the finals necessarily, but at least use the back half of the year to get yourselves in good shape for another tilt at it next year, with hopefully better injury luck, especially to those two that have not played much footy at all this year. So I think just hoping they've played some better footy over the last few weeks, and give themselves a chance at cracking into the bottom part of the 8, but I don't think they'll make it. Essendon, I've dropped a spot, 13th at the moment on the power rankings, and same as the week before really. There's just too much injuries to read into this too much, but they do need to find a solution to the midfield issues though. There's just too many guys who aren't good enough at AFL level that are getting minutes in the midfield, and they aren't able to play another position. And like, if you're Essendon and you have all these injuries, you need to be practicing for the future, right? Like you're probably not going to win these games. You want to still compete, but maybe some of these guys just aren't a part of that future, right? But the guy who definitely is your captain, Zach Merritt. I think we can all agree on that. So please practice with him playing in the midfield. Like, what's the point in not putting him in there? The end goal is for him to be one of your best, like your best on ball player. So mix and match those around him. Play him off halfback if you absolutely need to in spurts, but please stop prioritising players who have no upside or future in this team. And I understand that some of their like talented mids, like Sam Dorham, is out at the moment with suspension. So obviously you're not going to be able to do that with him, but I think that it's just more beneficial to put a young kid in there than to play a Darcy Parish or to play a Will Satterfield. Like, why are we bothering with these guys? Or if you have to bother with them, maybe figure out if they can play halfback, because like Zach Merritt's not going to be a halfback of the future. Like, maybe Darcy Parish can play some roll off there or play a half forward role or something. I just don't think that you need to be. I think you need to be more flexible in the lesser players' positions rather than Zach Merritt. Just because Zach Merritt can play wherever you need him to on the field doesn't mean you should, because you want to get those younger players playing with Zach Merritt in the midfield in those moments, because they're the ones you're hoping are going to take the next step for you and take you back to the finals, not Darcy Parish and Will Setterfield, for example. So, I don't know. That Darcy Parish contract, by the way, looking very rough, and he is looking more and more like a VFL player to me, at least. Melbourne, they've dropped one spot. They had the bye, just at the hands of Sydney, moving up a few spots here. The same as the Saints, I think. Yeah, Sydney obviously moved up a bit here from 15th to 12th, so the Saints dropped a spot, but I do think they played pretty well in this one. And I think that they play the Pies relatively well overall. They got a win against them last year, of course, and had chances to win in this one, I thought. But yeah, I've been pretty critical on some of the Saints' older players in the last few weeks, and including Brad Hill, but I actually thought he was great in this game, and probably the best game I've seen him play for the year. Marcus Windhager as well didn't have as big of an influence as a tagger as he has in previous weeks, especially on Nick Dacos, but I don't think he played too badly. But just a note that he probably doesn't have that running power to go with that like real agile and aerobic sort of mid. I think he's probably better matched to the real contested guys and bigger midfielders, as we saw him absolutely take Bond out of the contest the week before. So I think that, if he's going to use him as a tagger instead of a clearance player, which I do think you can lean back into that a bit more if he's getting beaten by Dacos, just, let him go head-to-head and find the ball himself in those moments, maybe a bit more, because he is capable of finding clearances and things like that. But yeah, I think that if you are going to use him as a tagger, it should be a bit more situational, where you're playing him on a Bondapelli, Petrarca, and Isaac Heaney, those sort of bigger bodies, rather than like Dacos, who's just going to, as we saw, run circles around him a bit in the end. But yeah, Hunter Clark as well, quietly having a bit of a purple patch over the last few weeks as well, and just ran his stats in the similarity tool, and he's come out most similar across the season to Brent Daniels and Sean Manor. So he's obviously he's played a bit more midfield time in the last couple of weeks as well. So just good to see Hunter Clark play some good footy and have a bit of a better run at it for once. North Melbourne, they're still 16th for me. I thought that North were pretty great in this game. They were efficient when they needed to be in front of goal and also with the ball in hand. But yeah, I think the biggest winner for them in this one was that they broke even in the clearances against the Blues, who rely very heavily on winning that category or that part of the ground. And obviously Tristan Xerri was a big part of that in the middle. And the game was really decided in the scores from stoppages. I thought it was 44-15 in that category. So they won the game by 11. So having that big of a margin in the scores from stoppage was pretty telling in the end. And they were just more efficient when they had their chances, because when you look at the stats, they actually got beaten in almost everything apart from the stoppage scores. So their ability to convert from that area of the ground was definitely the clincher in this one, and that midfield continues to build. So hopefully that can be a strength for theirs going forward as well. 17th are the Tigers. Bit of a bleh game for them. They're just sort of reaching that point in the season where it's probably going to be hard to keep motivating and getting the young guys and the senior players to buy in to have like some of those competitive performances we saw across the first half of the year. So I kind of think that it could get a lot worse for the Tigers as the season goes on. I can't imagine that their young guys are going to get any fitter or they're going to get better. I think like they might hit a wall a little bit, and some of the old guys might lose even more of an interest. So I probably expect, if you're facing Richmond in the back half of the year, I think that there's going to be a few 100-point wins here. Not to say they haven't been impressive at the start of the year, but I think it might be a bit of a grim end to the year for the Tigers. West Coast 18th, they had the bye, so we'll leave it there for the power rankings, guys. So there's a bit of movement this week on the board, and interested to see who emerges as the true contenders in the back half of the year. But as I said, I think we're starting to see the 8 take shape. It's just the order at the moment. As I said, the top 9 teams, Brisbane, Collingwood, Geelong, the Doggies, Adelaide, Hawthorn, Freo, GWS, and the Suns, they're the teams that are going to be playing finals. I'd be very surprised if someone from outside that group ends up making it. So just a matter of who misses out at this point in time. And at the moment, I think it might be the Suns. So we'll see how that goes. But that's not it for today, guys. We do have the Secret Star Society inductee for round 15, and it's a Saints player. It's Cooper Sharman. So he's a key forward for those who don't watch a lot of the Saints. But he's 24 years old. He was a mid-season draftee a few years ago, and I think it's going to be a big second half of the season for him. Especially with the announcement that Max King will miss the rest of the year. So he's probably going to get a bit more consistent attention from the best key defenders on the other team. Which if Mitch Owens doesn't cop them, he will. So definitely won't help with his overall performances. I think it might get harder for him, but I think it's the challenge that he needs to take his game to the next level. Teams, sort of trying to stop him, and not saying that he's been unstoppable or amazing to this point of the year, but watching the Saints games, he really has a few moments each game where you think, Jesus, that was impressive, or I don't know, he just has a bit of X factor for a key forward that you don't often see, and he's just super athletic, clean with the ball at ground level, and pretty good mover as well when he does it in hand, and can just really time his leaps really well at the ball as well in packs. So I don't think we've seen many key forwards that have been this athletic before, and he's 193 centimetres, so he's not a huge key forward, but with those athletic tools, he absolutely is a key forward, I think, in my mind at least. And he's having a pretty good solid year so far. He's averaging career highs in multiple categories, disposals, marks, tackles, kicks, inside 50s, marks inside 50s, and contested marks, all above average as well for a key forward. So, pretty strong start to the season for him. He's also ranked elite for goal, assist, and score involvements for key forwards. So, that's what you like to see. He's showing the ball around, and a bit of that might be Jack Higgins calling for it over the top every now and then. But I would love to see him hit the scoreboard a bit more himself. So, he averages 1.6 goals per game at the moment, which is only average for a key forward. So, you definitely want to see that uptick as the season goes on. But I think I'm just sort of betting on the upside here. I've liked the flashes that I've seen from him a lot. I think he's just one of those guys who's a bit of a freak when he can just do some random shit out in the field, and really impressive and catches your eye. So I'm hoping he has a big second half of the year, and that's why he's a Secret Star Society for round 15. Around his stats just quickly, and his comparisons on the year are Riley West, Cam Zurhaar, Liam Ryan, and Peter Wright. So interesting mix of players there. Probably shows that he's a bit of a tweener between a mid-sized forward and a tall forward. But I think that at the moment he's shaping as a very interesting key forward prospect for the Saints. Alrighty guys, thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.